This is the SaltyBunny and welcome to Dockspace episode 2. In this series of somewhat shorter videos, we are exploring in detail one ship girl at a time. Today, for our second video on the series, we will explore and focus on the first ship of the J-class destroyers, HMS Jervis. If you ever need a support destroyer that can heal, buff and sustain aerial damage like a champ, and have outstanding anti-submarine capability, well, Jervis would probably be your first pick. The J-class. In 1938, the smaller J-class destroyers succeeded the bigger, gun-focused tribal class. Jervis and her sisters has been designed with heavier torpedo armament than its predecessors. They also had a much reduced profile due to, for the Royal Navy, an uncharacteristic radical design evolution. It consisted of having them fitted with a two boilers rooms layout, therefore, reducing the overall length of the ship and cutting the number of funnels from 2 to 1. On the plus side, this design provided much better firing arc for its anti-air gun suite. However, the class was much more vulnerable to a catastrophic failure of boiler, and generally more fragile due to its change in building method, as we'll see a bit later in the video. One well-placed hit in the shared compartment could disable both boilers simultaneously. 24 of Jervis and her numerous sisters were built. They amounted of 3 flotillas of 8 lowly boats, poetically referred as the J, K and N class. In Azur Lane, we have quite a few of those. 6 out of the 8 in the J flotilla are available in game: Janus, Javelin, Jersey, Jervis, Juno and Jupiter. Maybe we'll see Jackal and Jaguar in the future. There was actually a 9th ship of that class, Jubilant, but it was cancelled before production in 1937. So far, we don't have any ships from the K and N flotillas. We might get some K at some point, but not so much for the N, since they were operated by the Royal Netherlands Navy, the Royal Australian Navy and the Polish Navy. History. Pennant number FOO, Lucky Jervis, as she became to be known later in her career, was commissioned 4 months before the beginning of World War II. During her first 6 months in operation, she was patrolling the home waters as the leader of the 7th Destroyer Flotilla. 2 days after the start of the war, she captured 3 German blockade runners. That early period ended with Jervis getting a tap too close to SS Tor, a Swedish freighter, and experienced how flimsy her construction was. Her port side was peeled off from the bow all the way down to the superstructure, and managed to sail back to the dry docks for a 3 months repair. It is still impressive that she managed to get back home with such extensive hull damage. From 1940 to 1942, Jervis, now Pennant GOO, went into several Mediterranean operations. Screening, convoy escorts, shore bombardments. Notably, during the Battle of Cape Matapan, Jervis boarded the crippled Italian cruiser Pola and rescued the wounded RN serviceman, before Pola was finished off and sunk by torpedo. Later on, she survived the costly Battle of Crete. She eventually got hit in Alexandria by a human torpedo which sent her back to the dry dock for 6 months this time. During 1943, after her repairs, she supported many operations in the Mediterranean theater. Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, to name a few. In 1944 she returned to Great Britain to receive a refit. After this update, she lost her position as flotilla leader, role she performed since her early career. She saw support action during the Normandy landings, and was decommissioned a few months later in September 1944. She was briefly reactivated in 1945 for some post-war policing actions in the Mediterranean Sea, then was used for training cadet in 1946, and sent off as explosives testing subject in 1948. Quite the anticlimactic end for this little busybody who led her flotilla and supported her nation's fleet relentlessly through the entire war. HMS Jervis had the reputation of being a lucky ship. Out of 13 major actions in her 5.5 years of active service, covering the entire war, none of her crew was lost due to enemy action. Even when her bow was blown off by a glider bomb at Anzio, they just towed her to safety. They brought her backward to limit the amount of water entering the ship. Sadly, though, in that same attack, HMS Janus, her sister, got stuck by one of the bombs straight in her forward magazine and was lost with 160 of her crew. Jervis in Azur Lane. In Azur Lane, Jervis is depicted over the pale backdrop image of a saint with open arms. With a white and gold theme, Jervis appears as a serious, early teen, with purple eyes. Her right eye is hidden behind her bangs. Her short hair are deep purple fading to pink, tied on top. Her maid outfit is complemented with a golden bell neck piece, a large black and gold back ribbon and a nurse cap bearing the Royal Navy ensign. In the original art, the nurse cap was adorned by a red cross. Jervis is also the only shipgirl from the J-class not wearing the golden crown in her default art. She holds a Fantasy's healer-style white staff that doubles as an IV pole with 2 bags, one tied on both sides. The ship hull she is sitting on is shaped like a syringe. She also possesses 4 small white wings, further putting emphasis on her role. Her war rigging is discreetly displayed in the background and shows only one of the 3 4.7-inch Mark 12 dual quick-firing main guns and her 2 quintuple 21-inch torpedo tubes. The final touch in her original art is a flight of doves, further outlining her purpose as a support and healer. Jervis in Azur Lane has a personality reflecting her Royal Navy service duties and role. She considers herself as guardian, entrusted with the duty of assisting the injured and ensuring their well-being. With a straight-to-the-point attitude and a keen eye for detail, Jervis doesn't mince words and isn't afraid to speak her mind, a trait that will reveal itself quickly in her interactions with the commander. Her professional demeanor is unwavering, and she carries out her duties with steadfast dedication. However, beneath this exterior, lies a character of depth and complexity. Jervis is not just a stoic shipgirl, she cares deeply for those under her watch. Whether it's the commander buried in paperwork or her colleagues, Jervis keeps a watchful eye and offers her protective instincts. She is observant, ensuring that no harm comes to those she cares for. In her moments of contemplation, Jervis considers the nuances of her service. She ponders the importance of honesty, the responsibilities of maid, and even the motivations of her commander. You might realize that Jervis, despite her deep sense of duty, is not just about completing missions, but it's about understanding the deep layers of human connection and the intricacies of service. In her memory quest line, you will also discover some well-hidden, almost perverse aspect of her complex personality. At some point she is confused about herself when she realizes that deep down, she also has some selfishness, wishing that the commander was sick so she could exclusively nurse him back. How to get her? Jervis is a special event ship. She was available during their Pledge of the Radiant Court Major Royal Navy event. That event ran from May 26, 2022 and June 15, 2022. A rerun of that event should occur somewhere in mid-2024. She was available from the event construction pool at the 0.5% reduced rate, since you could also get her in the event shop and as map boss drop from B3, D3 and the Daily SP. Performance graph. Her performance balance graph is, well, I'm almost at loss of words whenever I let my eyes on those. Incorrect, leaps to mind, unreliable, is getting closer to the truth. Off the mark would be a gross understatement. I wonder why I submit myself to this every single time. So, that graph is probably displaying, as far as it is humanly possible, how Jervis actually performs. I am convinced that a color-blind drunken octopus would paint something more accurate than this, but I digress. Jervis have generally much better stats, and will do much better than her performance graph would lead you to believe. Probably one of the reasons many players set her aside and are not using her. The stats. Her HP is above average. At 2087, she ranks in the top 40%, barely. Her 120 firepower, however, is setting her on the 33rd position, which is more than decent. Her torpedo score is also very good. At 477, she positions herself among the top quarter of all destroyers, 44th out of 194. Her accuracy is also pretty high. At 231, she sits at the 5th position on the ranking. With such high accuracy, that will give you more options for different auxiliaries you might need, depending on the challenge. With 204 for her anti-air, Jervis is head and shoulders above most DDs, setting her as 12th on the chart. Obviously, Jervis does not have an aviation stat. She ranks second on the anti-submarine capabilities with a whopping 247. That makes her a good fit for Chapter 14 on both boss or mob fleets. For the reload, at 232 she ranks third. That compounded for her decent firepower, does make her a potential good damage dealer, for her class. There is nothing to write home about for her speed of 43, ranked 104th out of 194. She is below the top 45% of all the destroyers. Her evasion sets her at the 11th position on the chart. At 271, she is in the top 6%. And lastly, to tie back up to her history, Lucky Jervis is actually pretty lucky as well in game. At 92 she ranks at the 5th position on the chart. Jervis shine the most on her stats and that, set her on higher tier than many ships of the same hull type. Her excellent accuracy, reload and decent firepower already makes her a good damage dealer, depending on the equipped gun. Her barrage will come back pretty often. Her torpedoes stat, on the other hand, are less impressive that her historic counterpart would lead to believe, but this is not counting with that specific equipment efficiency. As we'll see, a tad later, with her skills, she will boost even further her firepower and anti-submarine. And depending on her position and your fleet composition, her stats can be improved even more. Slot efficiency. Jervis have a main gun efficiency of 125%, which solidifies her position as a solid damage dealer, at least gun-wise. Her 155% efficiency on torpedoes offsets her somewhat lukewarm base stat, defining her also as a competent torpedo platform. Her anti-air efficiency of 105 is not much impressive, relegating her as a support AA ship. You will have to rely on other ships on intensive air attack sorties. The skills. Jervis possess 3 skills, and, not really surprisingly, considering her support-oriented role, one is defensive, one is support and one is her combat all-out assault. Her first skill is Please Take Care. For level 10 skill, it reads, increases this ship's firepower and anti-submarine by 10%. 20 seconds after the battle starts, restores 5% max HP to all ships in your vanguard. When the battle starts, if there are 3 or more Royal Navy ships in your fleet, increases your Royal Navy destroyer's anti-submarine, firepower, and torpedo by 10%. Jervis' second skill is Lucky Jervis. At level 10 it decreases this ship's damage taken from aircraft by 10%. When the battle starts, if your vanguard consists of only destroyers and or light cruisers, increases this ship's torpedo stat by 10% and decreases her torpedo damage taken by 20%. When the battle starts, if there are 3 ships afloat in your vanguard and this ship is in the frontmost position, when this ship takes damage, 15% chance to increase this ship's evasion rate by 30% for 10 seconds. There is a 20 seconds cooldown between activations. Lastly, her only attack skill is her all-out assault. At maximum limit break, every 10 times the main gun is fired, triggers all-out assault Jervis 2. This skill set, depending on your fleet composition and setup, can set her as one of the stronger destroyer you can use on your fleets. The gear. Alright, we have arrived at the part most of you are probably here for, gearing up Jervis. Jervis does not have any special equipment requirements for all her slots, so feel free to use whatever is good for you. For her main gun you can either go for maximizing her all-out assault or go for a more standard gun setup. With her decent firepower, high accuracy and reload, both options are viable. If you go for the all-out assault, your only option is the age-old single 76mm A8 blue gun. If you elect to go for a more standard setup, the top choice would be the Lab Rainbow Twin 100mm Type 98 improved high-angle gun. For the rare and normal ammunition guns, they're the B13 Twin 130mm B2 LM, or the prototype Twin 130mm Model 1936. If you are pitted against sturdier target, your armor-piercing option is the Twin 128mm/45 SKC/41 dual-purpose gun. God, I hate the German gun name nomenclature. And for the more accessible options, you can pick one Twin 127mm Mark 12 dual-purpose American gun or the gold version of the Japanese Twin 100mm Type 98. Everyone have one or two of those guns lying around. For the torpedoes, assuming you play on auto, use some guided torpedoes. The quadruple gold 533mm magnetic German torpedo are still one of your best choice. However, depending on your resources, you can use the Gearlab-built American 533mm Mark 35 torpedo mount. Those are especially interesting for Chapter 14 since they are the only torpedoes that can hit submerged targets. For manual play, the Rainbow Quintuple 610mm torpedo is your best pick. Alternatively, you use the Gearlab-built improved 610mm quadruple mount, the Quad Gold 610mm quadruple mount or the Universal 533 quintuple mount. On the anti-air slot, even if it's low efficiency, her 93.81% stat percentile, offset in a positive fashion for it. You can use the twin 57mm/L60 Bofors MLE 1951 Rainbow gun, if you can afford it. Else, it does fall back to your long, mid and short range standard options. The British Twin 113mm AAQF Mark I gun, is still, as of today, one of the best AA gun in the game. Readily available, with long range and high damage, it is suitable for pretty much anything the game will throw at you. On the shorter ranges, the prototype Italian Twin 90mm Model 1939 high angle would be a good pick. On the shortest range, go for one of the iteration of the 40mm Bofors you can get. Will it be the sextuple, the twin Staghorn? Simply go for the common quad mount. Any of those will not be detrimental, performance-wise. For her auxiliaries, the choice will varies depending on the task at hand, or her line position. For the center-nested position, if you go for max damage, you could use the J-Class Crown, That was a milestone reward during the fight on Royal Maids Part 3, that ran from October 2022 to November 2022, will increase her HP and luck, and improve her damage by 10% on all non-Royal Navy enemies. On her second slot, use the Data Core Shop Rainbow Type 93 Pure Oxygen Torpedo Equipment, or the Tech Box Gold version of it. For submarine heavy sorties, i.e. Chapter 14, you may want to consider equipping a Core Data Shop Hedgehog Anti-Submarine Mortar. For a more conventional setup, or if you feel the need of more evasion, you could either use the Beaver Squad Tag, especially good for manual play, or a high-performance hydraulic steering gear. And complement it with our usual boring old purple repair toolkit. Augment modules. Jervis does not have a unique module yet. You have the choice between the dual swords and the hammer. The sword will grant some additional evasion and firepower, while the hammer will give torpedo and hit bonuses. If you set Jervis at the frontmost position of your vanguard, any of the two modules will give an additional special attack, but keep in mind that's the only position possible for the slash attacks to happen. The sword will slash on an area pattern, and for the hammer, it have a spread pattern. That sums it up for the equipment. Fleet position and conclusion. Jervis is a very useful ship girl to have around. She will do very good on support role, healing your vanguards early for each battle of a sortie and buffing your other Royal Navy destroyers. She will also do a good job if you set her in the frontmost position of your front line, with proper equipment. She does possess a very good survivability and can sustain some serious torpedo and aerial punishment. That especially true is sorted with a full Royal Navy vanguard, comprised of destroyers and all light cruisers. Luckily, that is not necessarily a hard feat to realize for the Royal Navy with all those lowly destroyers and of course the flotilla of good or even totally broken balanced light cruisers, right? I hope that this video helped you in one way or another to find a role within your fleet for our cute little maid Jervis. This is pretty much it for this overview of HMS Jervis. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. You can also like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. If you did not really cared about any of this stuff, thank you for watching and reaching this point. This was the SaltyBunny and thank you for watching the video. We're done for now.